I got a key for this from keymailer, and it's not my type of game. To put it bluntly and simply. Or simple. What is my type of game is... Okay, let's actually start a new run. What is my type of... Oh, that's what new game does. Oh, alright, I forgot. I didn't play that much, because... It's one of those... you get dice, you use the dice on cards to deal X damage, or gain X health, etc. It does things differently to something like, say, Dicey Dungeons, which is a game that I like a lot. However, there's a big difference. If you will humor me talking for a bit, then I'll take off my headphones, because I'm gonna try and focus on saying this, or on getting it right. I like Dicey Dungeons because there is determinism. And the determinism is determined by the player, but it also comes from the game's mechanics. Now, in Dicey Dungeons, if you want to do anything, you need dice. In here, you do as well. The difference is in how the games go about A, giving, and B, letting you use said dice. In Dicey Dungeons, so there's other differences as well, such as how is the map laid out. In Dicey Dungeons, there's the main path to the goal and then the optional one. In here, that's not exactly present, and I will compare to Dicey Dungeons because that game I like, this game not so much, because there's a difference in the systems. That doesn't mean that the game would be bad, it just means that the game isn't exactly what I would want it to be. But, you know, there's an argument one could make. If there's one game that does something well, why have another game trying to do that exact same something again? Well, competition drives innovation, but not all the time, and it has to be done well. So, if there's a different game that also goes around with the concept of using dice to activate cards in a different way than Dicey Dungeons, then that's a game that can get a different player base, which Dicey Dungeons perhaps didn't capture. But as for me, there is little determinism in the game. In Dicey Dungeons, how do I put this? In Dicey Dungeons, there are mechanics which are not just about fighting the enemies, so things like how the cards can be used to affect enemies and yourself, which is not a new concept, but you use dice to activate it, and dice can be manipulated. So things like restore yourself X health if you rolled this value on a dice. So aside from that, there's also ways to manipulate the dice rolls themselves. Freeze is a status effect, and if you apply it, or if it's applied to you, one of your highest rolls, or your highest roll, is gonna get turned to a 1. You know, max is 6, it's a 6-sided dice, you can get 1 to 6, and if you get frozen, it's guaranteed to turn into 1. There's things like burn, where some of your dice get set on fire and you have to pay health to be able to use them. And it's not always negative, because you can use these burn effects to charge up your limit break. Limit break being an innate ability which you can use once you lose X amount of health. So you can use it to prepare it for more difficult fights. There's also the thing that you fully gain your health back upon leveling up, so you can use this to your advantage. And as far as I can tell, there isn't that depth in this combat, in this game. Maybe I missed out on it, because I didn't get very far, because I'm having trouble. Enough talking about that. Now let me bring up some bits about combat. In Dicey Dungeons, you always start with at least one attack card, and usually one utility or defense. In here, you start with a lot more cards. However, In Dicey Dungeons, the biggest difference is, in there, the game rolls the dice for you. In here, you get a placeholder for a roll the dice, and the roll happens when you use the dice, so it's not a guaranteed effect, and that slows the game down by a lot. There is like attention to detail where you see roll for each dice. You know, this is what you can roll. You cannot, if you roll any number outside of these, it doesn't count. There is some determinism, like hey, if you play something that is going to miss, you will guarantee the use of a card, but you don't always get, you don't always get card dice that will always miss. Like this one will, because it copies neighboring, or it copies all other played dice and picks one from them. So here I can not use it because I forgot that there has to be at least one for you to be able to play it. I digress. There is some, as I said, there is some determinism. There's a dice which allows you to remove one of its sides, which improves the odds. There's an ability which allows you to... Okay. In Dicey Dungeons, and in other games like that, there's usually some sort of stat. Strength, in here it's energy. You maybe get the idea. The more of it you have, the better your cards get, usually attack ones. In here, energy improves attack, defense, and utility as well. However, if you get unlucky with the rolls, fights can take forever, and you can lose too much health. So maybe you can see where this is going. If you get lucky, in this game, there's an ability which allows you to lock the strength you have for the next turn. Otherwise, you lose it at the end of your current one. You can only do that if you land 3 successful hits in a row. So there's already an obstacle. One tool which you could use to help you guarantee or get to the 3 successful rolls requires a miss. And if you miss, it nullifies the progress on that energy lock, on the strength freeze. That's one big problem I have. Trying to reach consistency is inconsistent. There are very few tools that you have from the start, and I've acquired next to none throughout my playthroughs that I've tried to do, or tried to win. Another one is that in Dicey Dungeons, you get an attack card almost immediately after the first fight. It can be bad, it can be good, but you get an attack card to increase the speed of the fights. In here, as far as I can tell, it's like you're not guaranteed to get an attack card, and even if you are, you're not guaranteed to hit with it. Right. And now comes the 50%. Right, let's see if I can do attack. Yay, I can. Now I can lock my energy. And now, whatever happens, I will be able to crap all over this enemy. Now, as far as I can tell, based on what I've played so far, there is no way to manipulate the dice before you use them outside of combining them together. In Dicey Dungeons, there's cards which you can put into your backpack, into your active loadout, which allow you to split a dice, combine 2 dice, with the added effect of if the added sum or total sum is larger than 6, then you get the leftover as a second dice, lower the value of the dice, bump it up, flip it. And all of this is what I miss in here, because, you know, it comes from the core idea that you have different dice types, because in Dicey Dungeons it's all just regular dice, which can be set on fire, frozen, etc. In here it's different types, and what could you do here? The answer is I don't exactly know. 4, okay, that's 0. Let me guarantee the hit and kill him. don't even know what else to add, because attack 0 times, +1 per missed roll on this. So it's not even just per missed roll on all of your cards this turn to have some sort of like consistency. No, it has to be on this specific card. By the time you get to hit with the charge, it could be turn free and you landed no attacks, and if you get unlucky, you landed no defense cards either and you lost a ton of health. It's better than a standard attack, but that doesn't say much, because the standard attack is only as good as your luck. And I guess that's the entire premise of this game. You either get lucky and win, or you don't get lucky and lose. That's not what I like. I like if there's determinism where I can exploit my knowledge of the game to adjust or shift the odds in my favor, you know? And even things which do allow you to, like, have a deterministic outcome some portion of the time. Like, this upgrade is useless. Like, yeah, hey, now it becomes an attack if you hit, if you get a successful roll. A better upgrade would have been reusable. Like, it's just, I maybe get the idea, or maybe I don't, which is why I have such a problem with the way the game is built, based on what I've seen so far. But it's not something I would like. Yeah, because, you know, there's attention to art, there's attention to detail to some extent. But the way the combat is structured and the game systems is not one that I like. Yeah, because for example, the attention to detail is if you have dice and if you're trying to get the perfect dice to be able to get out of the system where everybody has to obey dice for some reason. It's a cyberpunk dystopia, I suppose. Then why couldn't you combine them? You know, why couldn't you do other things with them? Like in-world interactions with core game elements. Same as Dicey Dungeons. Set the dice on fire, freeze them, electrocute equipment, things like that. But it just, for me, it's not good. It falls short of what I would enjoy. Maybe you would enjoy it, but for me that's not the case. There's also some other things, like if you do go and fight an elite enemy, they can be extremely beneficial to fight. Okay. 50-50. Okay, I guess it worked that time. In that you can fight an enemy which is ridiculously OP from what I've seen, but every turn he unlocks one dice slot for you, so the longer it goes on, the better for you, in theory. LOL. However, it's just, I think this game might be maybe made for streamers or some person of that sort. If I tap into what I think is my innate ability to maybe delve into the human psyche, I am not exactly lucky in life, I'm not doing exactly well, and as such, because things are often out of my control, out of my reach, and as such, I like games where I can achieve the opposite. Have things under my control, have deterministic outcomes, make things how I want them to be. Whereas I think a game like this, with a lot of chance, is going to, if you take what I described earlier, if you take how I described myself and flip it, so somebody who has all the control over their life they want, probably somebody with a lot of money, probably a streamer I'm guessing, or probably someone rich, this is going to satisfy them a lot more, I think. It's just not my type of game. However, I do appreciate that I was offered a key, so why not make a video anyway? 50-50. Rip. There is some level of determinism to not be unfair to the game. You can switch your activated ability, but as far as I can tell, it changes it for the rest of the run. And you also have these powers that you can activate once per run. Wow, that sucked. That sucked even more. And now if I try and get energy from all these, it won't matter because I can't lock it until next turn. So, like, if you get unlucky... oh, I haven't been using the other attack, right. I forgot. It's just that I don't play this that often. Let me... Because there is, as I described earlier, some attention to the game interacting with the game systems inside of the game. So, unlocking dice slots by fighting a dice enemy. If someone uses an ability which disables a card of yours, it will only disable a card from where you have your HUD at the moment of your end turn. So if somebody disables a card from me, it'll only disable one of these 5. If I move it like this, then it'll disable one of these 5. So, you know, you maybe get the idea. Okay, 33%. And this. As you may or may not have guessed, I'm not exactly going to spend a long while here, just because it's... I try to give this game a fair chance, I think. But it's just not... As I said earlier, it's not my type. I could, as I sometimes do, try and say what would I do to make the game more likable for me. However, wouldn't that defeat the purpose here? Because if I want to go play Dicey Dungeons, I'll just go play Dicey Dungeons. Only if the developer would want to hear from me would there be a point or a reason for me to do this. Because in the past I would usually say how I think a game core can be made way better, and I think nobody ever paid any attention. Because of course, I'm not a YouTube channel with billions and billions of views. Well, that was a bad impression. Anyway. So it's just nobody cares what I have to say. But even if I did, I don't know if I would change anything about the game, because as I said, I think it's a game which tries to appeal to a specific type of person. Because I think that a game which offers you deterministic outcomes is going to be a lot more played by regular person. Define that however you want. Whereas a game based on chance is going to attract mostly individuals of a specific sort rather than a broad range of individuals. I don't think I played this combat terribly, and I'm almost dead, despite having 2 attack cards, which I usually don't have. And in here you don't heal on fight end, you don't gain health on fight end, you can't pick up any health on the map. There are specific areas where you can gain little health. It's just not my type of game. Yeah, see how much is in front of me. See how much is left for me to do. And how screwed am I? Yeah, of course I could have gone this way, but I would have to fight an elite eventually. Now, there's also other things, like you start the game with 100 money, and very, very rarely will you encounter a shop unless you specifically pick a lane for it. Like, see where's my nearest shop where I can buy something. Like, until that point, the only use money has is to reroll things, and I think that's a missed opportunity, because a shop, if it was more commonly spread out throughout the map, it could have added determinism. Things like don't have it on the lane, have it in between lanes in these residential areas. It's one idea, yeah, because then it becomes accessible from either of the lanes, but don't have it be accessible from all 3, just put it in between the 2 or on the sides, yeah? Like here, and then you're more incentivized to go here, and then like if you put a shop there, then maybe switch it up. Things like that. But the game is fundamentally centered around I think as little determinism as possible, while still giving you some. So this is not a game that I would want to spend much time on. I think that's it. So I'll see you next time.